We weren't going to violate that trust. The whole point that Pamela's been trying to scream from the rooftops for the last 25 years was that this footage was shot under the auspices of privacy amongst a newlywed couple and that it was never supposed to be public.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Movie Podcast. My name is Shahbaz and I'm joined here by my two other co-hosts, my friends, my compadres. I don't have anything movie specific to give you guys other than family, because this really is about family, I think. And Daniel, you're definitely like family to me. Anthony, you're Anthony,
Say
you
it.
know?
Say it.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not
Anthony.
family. I get it.
You're
I get
you're
it.
the guy that shows
You're
up at
familiar.
the family reunions.
You know why?
And
Because you're familiar.
you're
That's
there.
why. Yeah.
I'm familiar?
Familia, like the Italians,
Familia.
the way they say it.
Yeah.
Right?
Familia.
Yeah. Like you're like a
Familia.
godfather to me. And that is not
Mm.
because you're Italian. That is just because you're you. Daniel, how are you doing
Thank
today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Shay, for asking. How are you doing?
That was such a robotic response. Are you
I know.
a
It's like,
robot?
oh, insert robot message.
I am doing great, Anthony. How are you doing? Oh,
Anthony,
sorry.
is he an AI? Is he an AI, Anthony?
Dude, I don't trust.
I was-
Is this a DeepFake? DeepFake Daniel.
I'm doing great, everyone. Thank you.
Our budget did get a lot higher this year, so I
Shay,
get
you asked me how
It
how
is
good
really
I am,
cold outside.
and then I'll give you the non-robotic answer.
okay. I like the little Italian twang you had there too. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Yo, Shay,
Oh, no.
I'm doing great. Look at
Yeah.
you with those glasses. See, robots can describe things, but look at you, Daniel, extreme as always with his extreme comments about things that are
Hold on.
extreme.
Comments. Now Anthony
It was
sounds like
remember
he's
that yesterday's episode we had the extreme Daniel moment.
Yeah.
This is it.
What was my extreme Daniel moment?
You
I'm
said
blanking out on
you literally
yesterday's
said
episode.
extreme Daniel, like you yelled at.
You're
I
like,
have
Oh, yes.
extreme.
That's
I have it in a
that's-
video that
I
I've been
remember
making,
now, yeah.
so don't worry. For the fans who don't know, you'll see it very
Yeah.
soon.
Okay.
That was such an unhinged opening because now I don't trust
It
both
was,
of
yeah.
you. Like Anthony sounded like, you know when you see those tweets where it's like I fed 1,000 hours of Anthony into an AI bot and it spit out the
Yeah.
script. That's what Anthony sounded like. But I'm glad
Hey,
you guys
it's a
are
movie
both doing
podcast.
well.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is our opening for the Pamela Anderson love story. We should be
Yeah.
talking about love. A little.
It is love. Listen, at the end of the day, this is what we're doing right now. The banter is what I think we're the best at, and it's a sign that this is a safe place. This is a loving place, and I love you guys. We love each other, and we like having fun on the show. At
I
the
do
end of the
agree.
day, this is all part of that.
I absolutely agree with what Daniel said there because even though the intro wasn't really about Pamela or even director Ryan White that we're going to be speaking to in a few minutes here, it was about us and our love for each other. So
Right.
I do want to highlight that. Of course, if it hasn't been spoiled already by me, which it has, we are speaking with director Ryan White, who has directed Pamela: A Love Story, a Netflix documentary. Shout out to our friends over at Netflix for providing us this opportunity to speak with Ryan, who was such an awesome person, and also letting us watch the documentary as well, which we'll give our thoughts on in a few minutes here. But before I do that, let me quickly jump into something about the movie podcast, because if it's your first time here, if you are a Pamela Anderson fan and you found us, well, she has a lot of fans, and you found us here, it makes sense. You're looking at us three guys and you're like, where's Pamela? She's not here, but she will. But there is a chance.
Let me
There is a
I'm
chance-
gonna put my wig on, Shay.
Well, you will use the deep fake.
Anthony has a hair color, so
Yes.
we're almost there.
But we'll use Daniel's deep fake though
Okay.
to make it all. And Daniel, I believe you can provide the audience with a possibility to see Pamela. Is that true? Can I kick it over to you for some announcements on that?
Yeah, I mean, you made it seem a little scary. The way it's like I'm selling like back alley tickets or something like this.
I mean, you might be. Who knows? You are charging for them. Is that not right?
No, we're not charging for these. So we are actually giving you the opportunity if you want to attend a screening of the documentary that we are talking about today, of course, Pamela: A Love Story. If you want to see it in Toronto on February 7th, make sure you head over to our social media pages on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you follow us. We will be giving away double passes for you and a friend to go see the documentary, and director Ryan White and Pamela Anderson herself will be there. So please go enter in that giveaway. You don't want to miss this opportunity.
Absolutely. And of course, that social media part of it all is at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can follow us on there. You'll be able to see a lot of our cool videos, a lot of cool reels. If it's your first time seeing us, hi, how you doing? We're on YouTube as well. First time hearing us, then you're probably hearing us on one of your favorite podcast apps. On that favorite podcast app, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us 5 stars. And if you have the ability to leave a comment, please do so, because we love reading them out. I don't want to take up too much time. I want to get right to this interview, and then we're going to share our thoughts on Pamela, A Love Story. So let's kick it over to Ryan White, director of Pamela, A Love Story. Hi, Ryan. I'm Shahbaz.
I'm
Hi.
Anthony.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us on the Movie Podcast today.
Cool, my pleasure.
How you doing today?
I'm good. It's just it's all happening. We had our first screening last night, so seeing all the headlines come out about Pamela is fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Ryan, what was it about Pamela that made you say, this is my next project?
Well, I didn't jump at this project, to be completely honest. So I'm born in 1981, which means mathematically, like, Pamela Anderson was the most famous person in the world when I was growing up. You know, when I was a teenage boy, she was everywhere. So she was like my generation's Marilyn Monroe or a Kardashian, whoever you equate her to. She was the it girl. But I hadn't thought about Pamela a lot over the last 20 years. And two of our producers, Josh Braun and Julia Nottingham, brought the idea to me, and they had gotten access to Pamela. And when they first pitched it to me, my first reaction was like, that probably isn't a documentary subject for me. Like, that is a great documentary, and I bet that woman has a great story to tell, but it's probably not a great fit for my filmmaking interests. And I think that's because I had this image in my head of Pamela from the 90s, which was this like larger than life mega celebrity. And I just assumed that with that would come, you know, a huge team of people around her, like agents and managers and publicists, which often just can ruin the documentary experience, or that she would be incredibly interested in how she was going to be perceived or branded. And I had all of these preconceived notions because of that caricature of who she was, that I just kind of discounted it. And then they convinced me to at least meet her and have a Zoom conversation with her, because she was in Canada and I was in Los Angeles. And so she popped up on my Zoom in this little square a couple years ago, and she could not have been more different than all of those preconceived notions. So we had a 3-hour conversation. It was so surprising to me in every way. She was just so down to earth and really uninterested in the documentary, which appealed to me, and not calculating at all. And so I thought, like, wow, if we could just bottle this Zoom conversation up into a documentary, I think it's going to really surprise audiences. And I like, you know, that's part of what makes a great doc, is surprising people, and I thought she would.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you mentioned, you did grow up with her. You were in that era. You know, for better or for worse, her life was always in the public eye. So how much of her story did you know? You know, did you just kind of know what was already being shown on TV, or did you do some more research before kind of getting into it?
I knew nothing. I didn't even know Pamela Anderson was Canadian. So when she popped up in Canada, it's like, what are you doing there? I just assumed she was born on the beach in Malibu, and she was the symbol of American sexuality for so many decades. The fact that she was a Canadian island girl, even those biographical details blew my mind. But she was writing a memoir when we began these conversations, and I asked her if she would send me the manuscript, because that 2 or 3 hour long Zoom call, we didn't talk about, you know, her life story at all. We just kind of shot the shit for a few hours, and she sent me the memoir, and that blew my mind. That's where I discovered her life story, and not only how incredible her life story is, sort of this Cinderella story on steroids, like such a crazy climb, her life story, but also her storytelling ability, which is something I'm always trying to suss out as a documentary filmmaker. Like, is this person good at telling stories? And her memoir was so dramatic and so funny and so well told that I knew she was going to be a good storyteller on camera.
Why do you think now was the best time to have Pamela's story out?
I don't know if now, like, I don't know why now. That you'd have to ask her that. I think a lot of it had to do with her sons. So she has two boys. They're both in their 20s, and she and Tommy Lee had those boys together. And I think Brandon and Dylan were tired of seeing their mom misunderstood and misrepresented. And I don't think she would have made this film without them pushing her to do it. I don't think Pamela is interested in how she's perceived by the public that much. I don't think she's interested in, correcting the record of even a show like the Hulu show, Pam and Tommy, which you saw on my documentary. I don't think those things are really a part of her calculus when she chose to do this. I think it came from an emotional place that her sons really wanted the world to understand who she truly is.
Right. Do you think she'll watch the doc? I know she indicates in the doc that she's hesitant to watch it or she'll never watch it. Do you think she'll watch it?
She did watch it.
That's amazing.
So she watched it a few days ago, and not because she really wanted to. She was just getting asked so many questions about it, doing press around it, and she felt like she wasn't equipped. She gave me every tape that was ever shot from her lifetime. She gave me every diary or journal that she ever wrote, and of course, she's never looked back at that stuff, so she had no idea what I was using in my film. And then suddenly she was getting asked questions about diary entries from her 20s, about a boyfriend that she had forgotten about. And so her son, Brandon, who produced the film, said, like, I think you just need to sit down and watch it. And I actually haven't seen her since she watched it. She just sent me a note on WhatsApp. I knew she was watching it at a Netflix office, so I was, of course, very nervous. And a few hours later, she sent me a very sweet note, which I'll keep private, but she was very proud of it. She was, of course, very self-deprecating about it, as Pamela is, but she was proud of herself. Like, she did a lot of the film and no hair and makeup, just very vulnerable, I think, which will surprise people. It's basically Pamela sitting on a couch and having conversations with me for a couple years. And she was proud of the vulnerability and honesty with which the doc was presented.
You kept it very personal and you really only had her family in it. Was there ever a conversation of getting other people from Hollywood or the industry to be a part of this, or just the family?
I mean, there was that consideration, of course, but that's not really my filmmaking style anyway. I even said that to Pamela in that first Zoom conversation. Like, I'm not really interested in making a biography of you where, Tommy Lee and David Hasselhoff and someone from Playboy are all weighing in on your importance. I'm really interested in seeing the world through Pamela's eyes, which is a very, very unique point of view. And I think she's a very one of a kind type of personality. And so the conversation was always like, let's make kind of the anti-celebrity documentary where, of course, we could make something where we're looking at, the 90s, or we're having journalists or sociologists talk about what she went through. But that just, to me, wasn't as interesting as a total intimate character portrait of her life through her eyes and how it's unfolding now. And she was on board for that. She doesn't like those types of celeb docs. She loves something that's a little artsier and a little rawer. And so that was kind of the tone we were going for, was raw and honest.
Something that we loved about Pamela was how she constantly captured her life on tape. And you mentioned, the footage that you have. And was there any footage that was left out or that you wish you had more time to showcase in the doc?
Oh yeah, I mean, because we had hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage, so a lot ended up on the cutting room floor. There was a lot of just beautiful moments of the family as they or Tommy and Pamela as they started dating, because they, that wasn't a common thing to have a handy cam in the 90s. That was like for rich people, and they were rich, so they had like the new gadget at the time, and they were filming the hell out of each other, which of course it will go down in history because of the stolen tape. But outside of sex that they were having on camera, there was a lot of just romance that unfolded on camera. And our general rule of thumb, because Pamela was willing to hand over all of that stuff without previewing it, was like we weren't gonna violate that trust. The whole point that Pamela has been trying to scream from the rooftops for the last 25 years was that this footage was shot under the auspices of privacy amongst a newlywed couple and that it was never supposed to be public. So of course, if we ever found nudity or sexual intimacy in the footage, we were never going to use it. Or if we wanted to use it, we would have definitely run it by her. So there was stuff like that, you know, a lot of family moments that, you know, Pamela could watch her sons as 3-year-olds for 10 hours on end, but I don't think that's that interesting to anyone in the general audience except the mom of those boys. So a lot of family footage of them just playing with their kids ended up on the cutting room floor. But we were always looking, you know, we had to watch down every second because, you know, on handy cams, you can record something for 10 seconds and it can be a diamond in the rough that's missed if someone doesn't watch down every second. So it was all about looking for those really beautiful, either emotional moments or cinematic visually moments.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that we love the most that we kept going back to is this is all about consent. And we finally have Pamela giving consent about her story. So thank you again, Ryan, so much for taking your time with us today. We can't wait for people to watch this and get to know the real Pamela like we did. And we can't wait to see what you do next as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Support for the movie podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who have trusted Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code MoviePod at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls.
You know what I didn't know I needed, but I needed is an LED light on my shaver.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
There is darkness, especially around that area. It works so well. You can really pinpoint all the hairs and you're like, okay, I got this point. Because hair kind of like starts to mesh and you really don't see it properly. But with this LED light, it's super bright and you can get everything precision cut.
It's a 4000K LED spotlight. So you are literally putting a spotlight to your genitals down there to make sure you're treating them as you should.
The skin safe proprietary technology that they use for the lawnmower is really good. Like I was always a little hesitant going down there, and then I felt safe. I felt like there was protection there.
Manscaped just makes it so easy to choose a tool, whatever you're using, be it the beard trimmer, the lawnmower, the weed whacker, and it just feels like there is like this accessibility to it that I absolutely love.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code MoviePod at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code MoviePod. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job at Manscaped.
Your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you. And we're back again. Thank you so much to Netflix and to Ryan White for having a chat with Anthony and I. Anthony, how did you feel that went? Like, that was a really, really fun interview we had to have.
You know, what I loved about Ryan's interview was that he was so genuine in terms of like how he gets into his subject matter. And especially with Pamela, he's like, you know, I didn't want to create a bullshit type of documentary where we fluffed up a lot of stuff. Like, he was really real about what he wanted from Pamela. And I just think the blend of the two, like his style of filmmaking as well as Pamela's, you know, genuine, I'm going to let everyone know how my life is, just works so well together. And I really love that type of rawness that you kind of don't see a lot of in Hollywood. There's always like this curtain. And I feel like after talking to Ryan, this guy is like, I'm going to give you everything. I want the truth to be told. I want people to know what we're making here. And I want people to know the real Pamela. And I don't want, you know, to dive into, you know, what Hollywood thinks of her or what these celebrities think of her. I really just want to focus on her and her life. So I think that just says a lot about Ryan. I do love his other documentaries like The Keepers and The State of Alabama versus Brittany Smith. Like, these are really good documentaries on Netflix, and it's just nice to see this refreshing take on documentary filmmaking, which you don't really get a lot of these days.
Absolutely. And Netflix documentaries are just always just top notch. Like, I look forward to almost every Netflix documentary that come out because I'm like, oh, I had no idea that airline seats have such an interesting history behind them. And then I'm watching it, and 30 minutes later, I find out that there was a murderer, and that's how they made airline
Right.
seats the way they are. So it's crazy. Daniel, you weren't there for the interview, but you did get to watch us. What did you think of the interview?
No, it was great. You guys both did a fantastic job, and I think Ryan was so fascinating to hear discuss, and see how he approaches work as well too. He didn't even know Pamela Anderson is Canadian, right? And I think Pamela Anderson, the name, everyone knows who Pamela Anderson is, but not everybody knows what she's all about and really who she is behind all of that, right? So I think to be able to have a look inside of who she is, and you know to really understand her upbringing, what she was going through. Obviously, like growing up, you see Pamela Anderson on TV or in magazines, and she very much was a sex symbol for like the modern internet age. But with that came with such a cost, and a cost to her privacy. And I think what this documentary does so well, and obviously it's being made with her consent and with her involvement, is to give a very natural look of who this human being is first and foremost. Sex symbol and whatever aside, like she is a person first and foremost. And to really understand who she is, I think this documentary does an incredible job of showcasing that, right? Everyone will know who Pamela Anderson is before this documentary, but leaving it, they're really going to understand who Pamela Anderson is, and really keep that with them. So I really appreciated that.
Absolutely. I think it's safe to say, and you're hearing it first here today on the Movie Podcast, we are going to be starting a change.org to put Pamela Anderson on our money. I mean, she's a Canadian icon. Why not
Yes.
put her on the $100 bill, put her on the 50 and the
Yes.
20? Money would sell out like crazy. I don't even know how that's possible. I don't even know what I'm describing right now, but people would be
Right.
buying money.
We need cooler people on our money. I think that's
We
the
do need some
first
cooler
argument
people
there.
on our money.
Yeah.
You know how we do like those coins and stamps? Like I think
Yes.
Yeah.
I think like as a Canadian heritage thing, Pamela Anderson should be on one of those stamps one day, one of those coins, just to showcase like there's Pam is Canadian, and she was she was an icon, even if it was like this sex icon in a sense that as still it is an icon of sorts, and there's a lot of
Right.
pros that came with that titlement. But
Mhm.
yeah, like it's important to have her as like a symbol of Canadian
But even what she
empowerment.
uses her platform for, right? And I think you see that in
100%.
this documentary too, right? Like, yes, she knows that she has a platform, so she's going to use that platform for change. So even speaking of Vladimir Putin and like doing all these other incredible things that she does, like that's pretty amazing. Like,
Huge.
and that's something that I don't think that she gets the recognition for what she really stands for often, right? And I think what's so incredible with this doc does too is show her relationship with her sons as well. And I think that's just really beautiful to see that throughout this documentary. It was really, really, I think, just you could tell it was made from the heart, and she
Yes.
really wore her heart on her sleeve for this.
And that's what I loved about it, was how absolutely 100% vulnerable she was. Even when her sons are calling her out on her shit, she's like, "Yeah, well, like that's me." And it was such a refreshing take on it, because I'm like, man, I have so much respect for her for just being who she is and not giving a f like at all. Like she was
Yep.
just like, "Yeah, this is what I did. This is what happened. This is what this is what my life was like. Whatever. Like I now have an amazing platform. I'm fighting for so much." And yeah, the whole Vladimir Putin thing, that was insane. That's absolutely
Yeah.
crazy.
Wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
So yes, Pamela
What
Anderson on her money. That's next.
One thing I
Yes.
wanted to say, Shay, is, and especially at the end, you actually summarized a really, important part of this documentary. Is like this is the, Pamela gave consent to this, and that's
Yes.
the whole message behind her whole identity. A lot of the times, especially during that period in the '90s where her tape was released, there was no consent, and people judged her and kind of gave her this, this
Yeah, like why should you care? You expose yourself. Oh yeah, but you're choosing to do
exactly.
that
Yeah.
versus
So
someone stealing that from you.
I think this is, her way of getting the consent back and giving back to what it actually meant to be her at a
Right.
certain point. Playboy was an empowerment for her. That
Yeah.
sex tape wasn't. And that's something
Right,
that
right.
we as we look back, like Pamela Anderson, when I was a kid, when I saw her, I fell in love. I'm like, I know I love girls. Like that's how I
everyone
know,
did, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn. But now that I'm older and now I see like the hurt that's kind of gone with it in sense of certain things in her life, I truly, I feel for her. And I think hopefully this documentary and what she's about to do in their life will inspire her to be more than that. And I know it's a little bit later in her life, but I think that's something to say, especially if you
Absolutely.
could start over.
No, you summed it up quite well there, Anthony. Thank you for that. Of course, huge shout out again to Netflix and to Ryan White for that amazing, amazing interview. Make sure, like Daniel said in the beginning, to enter the contest if you are in the Toronto area, which is a very big area. And welcome, hi Canadians, how you doing? Enter the contest. Follow us on all our social media accounts. That way, you can be up to date with all the contests we have coming out. Because trust me, we're gonna have a bunch of great contests this year. It's only the beginning. Thank you so much again to Netflix and to Ryan White for that amazing interview. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everywhere you go to enter our contest, because we have a lot of great contests coming up throughout the rest of the year. And that was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.